Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about finding missing measurements when you know two polygons are congruent. So we're just going to jump into some examples with these using what we know about congruent statements and corresponding parts. So our first example, we have these two triangles here, and we are told that triangle TSU is congruent to triangle XYW. Now from this statement up here, this congruent statement that's given to us, we can tell what corresponds together and what's congruent. So we know angle T is going to be congruent to angle X. And I like to list all this information, it'll help a little bit. Angle U corresponds with angle Y, so it's going to be congruent to angle Y, and angle S, well, that's going to correspond with angle W, so it'll be congruent to angle W. And our goal here is to find all the missing pieces of information, so all the missing measurements. So we'll start with the angles. So we know all the angles in this triangle, we just need to figure out the angles in this other triangle. Luckily, we know what corresponds. So angle T goes with angle X, so that means angle X will have the same measure as angle T, so angle X is going to be 39. So the measure of angle X equals 39. Angle U goes with angle Y. So angle U is 70, or 78. So that means the measure of angle U is 78. So the measure of angle Y is also going to be 78. And lastly, the measure of angle W is our last one. Oh, there should be a Y right here. Measure of angle W we're looking for. Well, W corresponds with S, so they'll have the same measure. Measure of angle S is 63, so the measure of angle W will be 63 degrees as well. So just like that, you can find missing parts just because you know what corresponds. And let's also do the sides here. We know TU, this segment, is going to be congruent to XY because those two are going to correspond, those two sides. US is going to go with YW. And again, this is why the order that we write these statements in is so important. ST, we know will correspond with WX. So we can use that to find the side measurements in this triangle because we know the sides in this triangle to the right. So the side measurements, let's say we want to find US first. Well, the measure of US corresponds with YW, so go to YW, that's 32. So US is also going to be 32, and I think this was inches. Yes, inches. So let's say we did US, now let's say we want to do ST down here. So ST, well, that corresponds with WX. So WX is 50, so ST would be 50 as well. You can even fill them in if you want to as you go. And then our last that we want to find is TU. So TU is going to correspond with the XY here, so it's also going to be 45. And just like that, you found all the missing measurements. If you want to fill in the angles over here, you could do that too. We said T went with X, so this would be 39. U went with Y, so this would be 78. And W would be the 63 over here, and those were all in degrees. So that's what you can do to find missing angle and side measurements based on the congruent statement that's given to you. Our next one, we're not going to have a congruent statement given to us, but we're going to be told that the figures are indeed congruent. So these are our two figures here. We have these two triangles, and we are told that these are congruent to one another. And we want to find the length of PO. So we want to find PO. We also want to find XV. And we want to find ON, and we're looking for the measure of angle X. So even though we're not given a congruent statement here, there is some information we can pull out, like the 53 degrees goes with the 53 degrees, so we know angle O is congruent to angle W, they correspond. The angle that's 37 goes with the 37 here, so N corresponds with the V, and then the P is going to have to correspond with the X. So angle P is congruent to angle X. And if we look at angle P, we can see that it is a right angle, has that right angle marking. So angle X would also be a right angle, which means the measure is 90 degrees. And just like that, we have one of the missing pieces. Now we're also just looking for these three pieces. So when you're looking for PO, so PO, well, that side is going to be congruent to, PO would go with XW. So look for XW over here. XW is 30 inches, so PO is also going to be 30 inches. So PO is equal to 30. Our next one that we're looking for is XV. So let's figure out what XV goes with. XV would be PN. So XV goes with PN. So let's look for PN. PN is 40. So XV will also be 40. They have to be congruent. They correspond in these congruent figures. And our last one is ON right down here. So ON we know is going to be congruent to, ON will go with WV. So WV is 50, which means ON will be 50 inches as well. So then we know it's 50 right over here. So once you know what corresponds, you can use that to figure out, once you know what angles, you can use that to figure out which sides correspond and vice versa. Let's try a couple more. See if we have these down, actually. Pull one over. Our next one, we have these two figures. And we want to figure out only two pieces of information here. We're looking for the measure of angle K, and we're looking for the length of segment JI. That's our info we're looking for here. So for this, we need to pull out some more information. Well, let's see. If you look at we didn't list the sides over here. We have U, R, S, and T. If you look at the 93 degrees up here, that's going to correspond with the 93 here. So you know angle U is going to be congruent to angle I. We can figure that out just by looking at them. They both are 93, so they're congruent, and they're going to correspond with each other. Now we need to figure out some other pieces of information, and for this one you have to really see what you have. We're missing three angles here, and it's kind of hard to tell which angle is going to go with which side because it could have been reflected or rotated. But let's use the side lengths that we know. We know that this side is 24, this is 54, and this is 45. On this quadrilateral, we only have one side length, that's 37. Since that doesn't match up with any of these three, and we know the figures are congruent, this side is going to have to match up with this right here. So this would have to be 37, which means LI, so LI, actually we'll put it over here, LI is going to be congruent to UR. But keep in mind the U corresponds with the R, so wherever you see the I, I'm going to put the U, so the U will go second, so it's going to be RU, which means if you have RU going with LI, and you know U goes with I, that means the R is going to go with the L. So angle R is going to be congruent to angle L. Kind of tricky to pull the information out. But if angle U goes with angle R goes with angle L, that means this is 114 degrees right in here. It's not what we're looking for, but it helps us uncover some other pieces of information. So then if you look, let's see, from that point U will go to, one of the side lengths is 37 feet. The other side that forms off of there is 45. U went with the I. So at the I, one side is 37. The other side that comes off is going to be 45. Both the corresponding vertices are going to have the same sides that come from them. So we have our JI down here, should be 45. We need to find angle K. You can do that a couple ways. One way is you have the angle R. If you look at the two angles that are like next to the angle R, you have angle U and angle S within the polygon. Well, we already know one of them is 93, the other one is 91, so this one would be 91 up here. You also can think of what's the opposite angle from U in this quadrilateral. The opposite of U is 91, so the opposite away from I would be 91 over here, and that's the angle we're looking for. So we'll have 91 degrees, and we found out what K is. Then once you've kind of uncovered that, we don't need to, but you could find out the other pieces of information for this quadrilateral. You would know J is 62. You would know, let's see, the 24 is going to go up here, and then the 54 would go over here. So once you start to unlock pieces of information, it becomes easier to gather the other pieces. All right, on to our last one, and this one we have two triangles. They look kind of like this. Here's one, here's the other, and we know JMP and RWB. We are told, so I'll list all the given information in red. We are told triangle JPM is congruent to triangle RBW, so we know what corresponds there. We're also told that the measure of angle P is 37, that RB is 13, and MP equals 12. So the information we're told, I'm just going to fill in. P is 37. RB, that's over here, is 13. MP is 12. And our goal is to find all the missing measurements. So key piece of information, I'm going to put a star next to it, is this congruent statement. From that congruent statement, we know angle, we'll just start with J. Angle J is going to go with angle R. Here's your congruent statement. Angle P is going to go with angle B. And angle M is going to go with angle W. So from these congruent statements, we know P goes with B. We were given angle P here, so we know angle B is also going to be 37. Now we know J goes with R, but we don't know either one. We can think to some of the past things we've learned about triangles though. The interior angles of the triangle should add up to 180. This is 37. This is 90. Notice how M and W are both 90. They correspond. They have the same measure. They have that box marked off. So 37 and 90, you can do a little bit of math here, and you'll find out that your missing angle up here is going to be 53 degrees. So if R is 53, J will be 53 as well. Then we have all the missing angles that we need. And let's say we list now our corresponding sides. JP, well, that's going to be congruent to RB. PM, that's going to be congruent to BW. And MJ, that's going to be congruent to WR. So what we're really seeing is these congruent statements are going to unlock everything for us. RB goes with JP. Since we know RB is 13, we know JP is 13. So JP would be 13 up here. Then we know, let's see, PM goes with BW. PM is 12 over here. So it goes with BW. So BW would also be 12. And our last part for this one, we have JM and RW. We're looking for one of those two. And we don't have either one. But what we do have, if you look, we have a right triangle. We have the hypotenuse in one of the legs. We can actually use Pythagorean theorem to find one of them. So I'll do it with this triangle. 13 squared is equal to 12 squared plus, we'll just call it x for now, plus x squared, that missing side. We can use this because we have a right triangle. So 169 equals 144 plus x squared. You do the math here, you get x squared equals 25. So x equals 5, meaning RW is 5. And if RW or WR is 5, then MJ or JM is 5 as well. So we have this side and this side both done. So sometimes you have to use some past topics that we talked about, like Pythagorean theorem or adding up the angles inside a triangle, but you still can use those to find missing measurements. And then between the two triangles, you'll know both the sides or angles are the same as well. All right, so go ahead and try some of these on your own and have a nice day.